and I call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Will you stand for the flag salute? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, Michelle, could you please call the roll?
Potato,
Here.
Brown, Cole, here, Buckstetter, here, Newman,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Word.
Here.
Yay, 7 checks on my paper. Love it. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item number 1, resolution number 1654, interlocal agreement for inmate housing SCORE. Item number 2, approval of council minutes from the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023 and February 27th, 2023 study session.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hochstetter, would you please make a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Yes, I move we adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Newman. All right, would any member of it has been moved and seconded on the consent agenda. Would any member of the public like to discuss any of the items? Seeing none.
Mayor, now's the chance for council to remove any items that they'd like to discuss.
Okay. It is not on this paper. Would any council member wish to remove an item?
No, thank you.
Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Okay. All right, moving on to public comment. The public was encouraged to submit their comments to the city clerk by email before tonight's meeting, so the clerk may read those emails received into the record. Were there any public comments received?
No, there were not.
All right, does any public listening or watching have any comments they would like to make regarding items not on our agenda tonight? Use your raise your hand feature if you're online, but I see nobody online tonight, so.
Mayor, you do have one in virtual that would like to speak tonight.
All right, we do. Okay. So you can raise your hand by pushing *9 if you would like to speak. Otherwise, is anybody in the audience like to speak tonight on any?
Yes,
agenda?
please.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Maren Clifton. I have
Okay.
my husband Kyle and our daughter Freya with us. I was born and raised in Sumner, graduated class of 2003. We lived in Tacoma while Kyle was at JBLM and then moved back here in 2018. And for the entirety of my experience in Sumner, cats getting some time outdoors has always been a cultural norm. Take a walk around any block on a sunny afternoon and you'll see that it's still a cultural norm. When our municipal code was written, I don't believe that it was trying to suddenly change that norm with a broad definition of animals at large. In fact, it appears to be a copy-paste of Tacoma's code, and I know that that's not their intention because they explicitly call out that cats are exempt from their leash laws on their complaint page. Our ask this evening is that Sumner simply mirror the same language and explicitly exempt cats from the leash law and not designate a cat at large for walking across a driveway past a Ring doorbell. I'd like to provide some context for this ask. For the past 2 years, we have endured ongoing harassment from a disgruntled neighbor, not because she's seen our cats out, but because she has a misguided belief that ours are the only cats in the neighborhood. And she's become increasingly hostile about us lying when we've informed her when the videos and texts that she sends us are about other cats. She has made numerous complaints to Metro Animal Services and submitted 6 videos, 4 of which are decidedly not our cats. The 5th is hard to tell, and frankly, I don't remember if he got out on February 7th. It's bad enough to endure her angry texts and vague threats, her yelling at my husband, her bringing our child to tears. But Metro Animal Services has been complicit and even a party to her harassment. In fact, an animal control officer went so far as to warn her that I might throw poisoned hot dogs over her fence to kill her dogs. She threatened a restraining order, and the Sumner police came to my door. Our neighbor has a misplaced vendetta against us, and it seems Metro Animal Services does too. We did a public records request and found exempting specific incidents and irresponsible animal husbandry. There were 56 records of information only. The 4 calls against us are the only enforcement for a cat at large. But that's a small data set, so we asked Tacoma for their records as well. In the past 5 years, in more than 2,600 calls to Metro Animal Services across Sumner and Tacoma, we are the only infraction for a cat outdoors that was issued a $513 ticket. We have been amenable to requests and have, for the most part, tried to keep our cats indoors for the past 2 years. But cats do get out sometimes, and frankly, I think it's good for them when they do. Moreover, keeping my cats inside doesn't stop other neighborhood cats from walking past her doorbell, and I shouldn't have to take the blame. I would like the harassment to stop. I would like to not stress that a cat will get out and make us late for school. I would like the cats off leash to remain a cultural norm. Luckily, the fix is easy. Please mirror the language used on Tacoma's site and direct Metro Animal Services to stand down. Thank you.
Thank you, Maren. All right. Anybody else would like to speak tonight on anything not on the agenda? All right. Okay, seeing no more, we will move on to new business. First, we have a lot of commissioners in the house. The first one is a Design Commission reappointment of Cheryl Ebsworth. Councilmember Newman, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, except I don't have the agenda.
I can make it.
Okay, yes, I would like, I'm on, right, okay, no, I need you to. On the microphone.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to move that we appoint Cheryl Ebsworth to the Design Commission and reappoint.
Yes, and I'll second that.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor. And I call on Scott Waller, Associate Planner.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking the time to review the reappointment of Commissioner Cheryl Ebsworth to our Design Commission. Cheryl has served on the commission for 4 years now, acting as chair for the last 2, and has done a great job of leading and facilitating those meetings and ensuring that our projects in town get reviewed, have thoughtful dialogue around the project during the meetings, keeping the meetings moving, ensuring that the applicant has a chance to speak up for their project, as well as, asking staff, questions about the design, the staff report, and ensuring that we have great dialogue in those meetings. So staff recommends that she is reappointed.
Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Hi, commissioners, counselors, I should say. My name is Cheryl Ebsworth, and it's been a privilege to be on the commissioner for Sumner and help this city continue to thrive. So I'm looking forward to a reappointment and to continuing to help Sumner see new development that they want to have in the city and that works for the owners of those projects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any discussion among council members? Do I see
I'll
any?
just-
No? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Scott, are you good? Are you done?
We're good. Yep, we support it.
Great. I'm excited that we have such good turnout for our commissions and more eyes on everything, and really it makes our work a lot easier, and I appreciate all of the commissioners. So we will, any member of the public like to speak on this? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Reed,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you. Next one up would be Design Commission reappointment for Brian Fancini. Councilmember Brown, would you like to make a motion?
I move to confirm the reappointment of Brian Fancini to the Design Commission.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'll second that.
Thank you. And we will call on Planner Scott Waller.
Great. And again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking the time to review this reappointment of Mr. Franchini. Brian has served on the commission for 4 years and brings a great design eye to projects. He has some of the strongest design background on the commission. So it's always beneficial for staff to have, experts in the field on the commission. And we really appreciate Brian's, take on projects and just the insight that he brings to those. So staff would support his reconfirmation to the hearing or to the design commission for another 4 years.
Very good. Mr. Franchini, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, council members. When I signed up for the first term, I thought 4 years was quite a long time. And a couple of weeks ago, I got email saying that I needed to be reappointed again. And it was kind of a shock that it had flown by. It's been a great experience. We've had a lot of fun with the board and a lot of fantastic projects coming through the city and a bunch of them on the horizon. So I'm really looking forward to continuing and serving on the design commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion among council members? Councilmember Newman.
It's because the 4 years doesn't count when COVID is involved. That's why it applies. But I do want to thank both of the design commissioners for signing up again. Because we used to have a real problem of not getting enough local involvement and projects would delay and delay and delay because you couldn't get a quorum. So thank you very, your time is well appreciated and actually saves the city a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to Civil Service Commission reappointment.
Would you like
Oh,
me to
yeah, that
vote?
would be nice. Okay. Do I have,
Would you
I
like
have
me
a
to call the
second?
roll?
All in favor?
Would you like me to call the
Oh,
roll
you're gonna
first?
call the roll? Okay,
Okay,
go ahead.
thank you. Hochstetter,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
There, very good.
So let's welcome.
Yay. All right. Civil Service Commission reappointment, Brian Anderson. And I call on Jeff Steffens.
How about?
Mayor, would you like
Barb-
to have?
Yes.
Thank you. She got it.
Councilmember Potato, would you like to make a motion?
I'd love to make a motion. I make a motion to reappoint Brian Anderson to the Civil Service Commission.
Thank you. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
You. Now I'll call Jeff.
Good evening. The mayor is seeking reappointment of Brian Anderson to the Civil Service Commission for a term ending March 31st, 2027. The Civil Service Commission consists of 3 members and is responsible for administration of human resources policies and practices in areas of competitive testing, conducting investigations and hearings, position classifications, and any other matter of general personnel administration subject to the provisions of the state statute and civil service rules. Staff is supportive of an additional 4-year reappointment for Mr. Anderson. And he's also here tonight if you have any questions for him.
Mr. Anderson, would you like to say a few words?
Mayor, members of the council, I've had the privilege of being on the Civil Service Commission since 2014. And it really has been a privilege to help Brad and his team facilitate, new hires and promotions in the police department. And it's a privilege to be honored with this to continue for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to have you. do we have any discussion among the council members? All right, seeing none. Michelle, would you like to call the roll?
Newman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Hochstetter.
Yes. 7-0. There we go. All right, moving on to ordinance number 2850, updating Sumner Municipal Code 8.04 cemetery. Councilmember Cole, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move to adopt ordinance number 2850, revising section 8.04 of the Sumner Municipal Code substantially in the form as approved by the city attorney.
Thank you. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
Seconded by Councilmember Newman. I will call on Community Services Manager Derek Berry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Derek Bray, Community Services Manager. Like what was said before, we are updating Sumner Municipal Code 8.04. This was taken to the Forestry and Parks Commission in February, as well as the CD Committee, where we had discussions on these simple updates that will help clarify some of our rules. First one is section 804-250, which outlines the rules related to decorations at the Sumner Cemetery. This update clarifies that the cemetery is not responsible for or the care or return of items that are left at gravesides. Section 804-270 outlines rules for monuments and memorials. This clarifies that upon request, cemetery issues temporary markers and signage may be placed by staff for up to 30 days, and no outside temporary markers or signage is allowed. So we do have markers that belong to the city that are temporary. So upon request, we can take care of that. Next update is 804-290, which outlines the fee schedule for the cemetery. The update removes the requirement of yearly review and adjusting to more as an as needed basis, as opposed to every year. Are there any questions or concerns or things I can answer?
Councilmember Reed.
Thanks, Derek. I just have a general comment. I like when we're able to open up an ordinance and be able to do updates as necessary, and I fully support the ones presented tonight. I also want to say a big thank you to the cemetery again. Less than a year ago, we buried my sister-in-law there, and from start to finish, the staff and the process and the service and everything was just absolutely amazing.
Good deal.
Anybody
sorry
else?
for your loss.
Mr. Brown.
Yes. How long are decorations available?
So right now, I actually went out there this afternoon. They just put away the Valentine's decorations that aren't supposed to be there. So a lot of times people bring decorations that you're not supposed to. We try to be respectful as much as we can, but after like 2 weeks, Valentine's Day, they just put them on the table outside the operations center. They usually sit there for a week or two before they're put in the dumpster. So if people want to go back and get it, it's not like we just take it the next day and toss it. Yeah.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support these revisions. I just curious, Derek, has there been a problem in the past? I mean, is this just kind of cleaning up?
Cleaning it up. We do
Awesome.
have signage out when you go out, both entrances, the north side, which is the Pioneer side, and the new side, which is on the south, do have rules about what can be left out. December, January, and February are the only time that plastic flowers are allowed. Once again, people go outside those limits, we put them on the table. Another one is the markers. We recently had a situation where someone had basically a corrugated plastic sign that was out for quite a long time. The concern of the staff is if something happens to it or gets damaged, reasonably, are we going to allow outside markers, temporary markers to be there? And they don't want that. So.
Well, I think that's a good idea. Will your staff be attempting to notify the next of kin that the things are being removed, or is that just kind of an understanding?
No, it's just more of an understanding. We don't have next of kin. We don't necessarily know who left it. It could be a family or a relative or a neighbor that wanted to come pay their respects. So, kind of
Thank you.
challenging.
Appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Mr. Berry, thanks for getting ahead of things like this. Whenever there's clear rules, it's better for the customers and for us to provide more professional service. And there is very professional service out at our cemetery. I think we're all proud of how it's maintained. So thank you to your work and to the rest of the staff.
Thank you. I'll share that for sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Newman?
Thank you. So, yes, I also would like to thank staff for like the respect that they give. And I also want to, sort of let anyone know if anyone thinks or views this policy change as insensitive, it's quite the opposite. I know that, my dad and brother both volunteered in a smaller town, even smaller than ours, to take care of a cemetery. And this is actually trying to be respectful. It helps staff be able to maintain the grounds more easily when it comes to lawn and mowing, whatnot. And keeping everything clean, like making it not look like the side of a road somewhere and whatnot. So this is actually trying to be like, do the respectful thing and not the opposite. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Newman. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, any member of the public like to speak to this? No, seeing none? Well, will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
All right, unanimous. Okay, our last item on the agenda is resolution number 1655, formation of a library capital facilities area. Councilmember, Deputy Mayor, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I make the motion adopting resolution number 1655, creating the Sumner Library Capital Facilities Area as described in Exhibit A and depicted in Exhibit B in a form approved by the city attorney.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Well, second.
Seconded by Councilmember Newman. I call up City Administrator Jason Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Jason Wilson, your city administrator. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the formation of a library capital facilities area. We'll start off with a little bit of background about the new library location, what an LCFA is, and the boundaries and the potential impact to the property owners. So the council a number of years ago purchased some land across from Fred Meyer on Main Street with the hopes of creating a good location for a new library to be built. A couple years later, back in 2019, we conveyed that property to the library, and also they released their interest in the 50% ownership of the current library location on Friar Avenue. So this is right across from Fred Meyer, and there's a vacant piece of land, about 2 acres worth, that the new library will be at. This is a conceptual site layout, so you can see that it's a 20,000 square foot building located along Main Street with parking in the rear. And the library was at your study session on February 13th and went over the estimated project costs. We're looking at a $19 to $20 million project with funding from various sources, including the library district itself, the foundation, as well as a capital ask that is working its way through the state legislature as we speak. The bulk of the cost will be in the form of an LCFA bond, a library capital facilities area bond that would be approved by the voters, and that's a $15 million bond. So what are library capital facility areas? The state legislature enacted some parameters that allows libraries to go out to the voters to ask for their ability to sell bonds to build libraries. And these are basically smaller geographic areas within the existing library district. So how are they created? The partner agencies, which in this case is the Pierce County Library System, as well as the City of Sumner, we determine what the boundaries are. And then once those boundaries are set by resolution by both of those parties,
It then goes off to the Pierce County Council for their consideration and approval. If they approve it, it then goes on to the ballot for consideration by the voters in that library capital facilities area. And then if it passes, then the agencies get together and they sign an interlocal agreement, which establishes the roles and responsibilities of the separate LCFA board. Once that's done, then you sell bonds. And the library designs and constructs the new building and then operates it. And then when the bonds are repaid, the LCFA dissolves and ownership resolves or reverts back to the originating parties, or however it's established in the interlocal agreement. So in this case, the property would go back to the library. Over the last several weeks, councils met and discussed different options for the LCFA. And the majority of the council has indicated that they prefer a city limits option as their preferred alternative. So what is before you in your resolution tonight would establish the LCFA as part of the city limits. So there are some rules to LCFAs. In order for them to pass, they need to validate and you have to have a supermajority. So what is validation? Validation means that that in order for it to be a valid election, 40% of the number of ballots cast in the last general election need to be cast this time. So in this case, in November of 2022, the voter turnout for the city limits was 3,962, which means in order for this to be a valid election, 1,585 ballots would need to be cast. And of those, you need to have 60% plus one. So if just 40% were to cast a ballot, that would mean you'd need 952 votes. You have to have both. You have to have the validation as well as the 60% threshold for the measure to pass. The library also put together some example levy rates. So assuming a $15 million bond using a 2022 median home value of $514,000, the monthly cost to the average homeowner would be $10.11, an annual cost of $121.30. So the next steps before you tonight is the resolution to authorize us to move forward with would create the LCFA and allow us to move forward onto Pierce County for consideration. And then on Wednesday of this week, the library board will be considering a similar resolution. And then the county will consider their resolution in April. The library district, assuming all these pass, would then place it on, would file it with the county in May to be on the August ballot. Happy to answer questions. If I don't have the answer, I know Gretchen Casserati, the executive director from the Pierce County Library, is also here and she'll help me out. So.
Any questions? Mrs. Brown.
How many years would the bond be?
Right now, they are considering a 20-year bond.
Okay. Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I make a motion to expand the boundaries of the proposed LCFA to include Pierce County election precincts 31,880, 31,810, 31,889, 25,381, and 25,87, and request that exhibits A and B be updated accordingly.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Been seconded by Councilmember Stewart. And
Mayor, before Mr. Reed speaks to that, can I just make a clarification? It should be 25,381 and 25,871. That's my apology. I left off the one there. So that is his intent, correct, Mr. Reed?
Thank you. I clarify 25,871.
Thank you.
all right. So Councilmember Reed, would you like to speak on your amendment?
I would, thank you. So first of all, I want to start off with, I love the project. I want the library to succeed. Things are very different now than they were pre-COVID with the plan for the library and the funding options that were available at that time versus now. The purpose of this amendment is purely to adjust the boundaries. It's not about the project itself. We were presented with three options. There are a lot of rules that go behind the drawing of the boundaries themselves. And we had three options. One was specifically as stated within the city limits, which I thought for a regional service that is going to be used by many people outside of the city itself, that was a lot to put the full burden on just the city residents. Option 3 was a little bit too expansive. It went way to the east, and I thought went a little bit further than it needed to. Although neither of the 3 were ideal, but I thought option 2 that we were presented with and the one that's showing on the screen now was more representative of the actual users of the library and would more fairly distribute the cost out to those areas.
You done?
I'm done. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Brown?
Yes, my mind is more clear than my voice. When the library is completed, it will be an awesome regional facility used by many. Our urban growth area should help pay, at least vote on it. We don't need to rush through it, but just Sumner residents pay. Taxes over the next 20 years will continue to rise. Let's try to keep taxes lower and have others share in an awesome new facility that they'll use as well.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Like most all of us on the council, if not everyone, I'm really excited to get a new library. This vote is not about supporting a library. This vote is about how do we meet the cost required to build the library. And I support Councilmember Reed's amendment because I have long felt, not just in this situation, but in others, that residents of Sumner are bearing the cost of a lot of city services that are used by outsiders, people who, that didn't sound very good, people who live outside the city limits. I don't think that's right. I think it's wonderful if they want to use a library. A new library will probably be very popular. Or people who live in Ording, people who live maybe in Lakewood could come over here. A lot of people who live outside Sumner will use it. And I feel if we have any opportunity to help defray some of the cost to our taxpayers, we should take that. The UGA, if we don't choose option 2, the homeowners, the homes, the properties in the UGA will never be asked to pay for this. I think that's a mistake. And I realize that this is not a vote to support or not the library. The ultimate decision will be to the voters in whatever is determined to be the LCFA when that bond issue is put on a ballot for a vote. So I strongly support this. I feel it would be, we would be as a council remiss in not stepping up to protect, even though a little bit, the citizens and the costs incurred by them. Thank you.
Councilmember Newman.
Thank you. I respect the intent behind the amendment. I cannot support it because in my opinion, and I think that elections historically show that if we do this, we won't have a library. So at that point, it doesn't matter who paid, like no one will be paying for it because we won't have one. Also, the libraries have been modernized. You know, it's not just about books. It is so much about technology. In this case, also potentially multi-services resource where you get taxes done. Like it becomes the central point where we finally have a point in contact for social services other than Tacoma. And here's the irony, most of the people using those aren't paying for these anyway. So I'm not concerned about which precinct is paying and which one isn't. Most of us will be paying for this and not using the services that they're offering, but we all desperately need before we look like Tacoma or Puyallup, et cetera. So anyway, so I can't because we won't have a library without, like, with this amendment, but I do respect the thought behind it, but I can't support it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilmember Potato.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, often it's spoken among this group that you're concerned about the residents that are paying the taxes. Well, Sumner is very lucky because we have the MIC in the north end, and they're paying 56% of our bill. So instead of $100 or 121, it'd be $240 per year. And so, and then for the last 2 years, I've been part of the committee that's raising money for the foundation. They're raising $3 million. And for example, Sumner Rotary has raised $300,000 for the multi-service center that will serve people not, I know Earl's often concerned about, the low income and the services that they need. But, having that here, so people do not have to rely on transportation to get to Tacoma or other places. So I believe, yes, it might be nice to get the outer areas, the additional precincts, but I'm just concerned that they don't have the commitment to the city and the identity for Sumner. So I really believe that Sumner residents will be very supportive of the issue. And I just, the more we go out to other precincts, then you need more votes. And I'm just not confident that we would get enough votes, and we need this to pass.
Anybody else? Councilmember Cole.
So I've lived in Sumner for 6 years, and prior to that, I lived in King County and had a library card there. I love the library. But I did not use just one single library. It depended on what I was doing throughout the day, which library I'd go to pick up my books or, whatever it is I ordered. And so to me, that isn't a huge concern about who pays for it. I actually received applied for and received a Pierce County Library card for the first time, maybe about 6 weeks ago. And so the library was nice inside, but I do know that it's just not up to speed with all the latest and greatest technology. So I say all this to say that I am probably one who won't be using the library that much, but I am more than happy to pay for it with my, be taxed for that. It's not a big deal at all. But I think it's a service that we just need to provide to the city, and however or whatever needs to be done to make it successful, then I think that we should take that route. So I unfortunately don't support this particular amendment.
Council, do you have anything? Right. Okay, go ahead.
So I have a question. So for the city administrator, Jason, can you remind us, please, like what would be the cost difference between these two boundaries?
Yeah, I just pulled it up on the screen. So if you went with the Reed amendment, it would drop the monthly cost down to $8.63. So a difference of about $1.50.
About $24 a year.
Yeah.
So
not even.
I could be wrong. We don't have a poll, but I suspect that most people in Sumner who are in support of the library are willing to eat the additional $2 a month to make sure this happens. Again, my primary concern is that with this map change, it wouldn't happen.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder if I could ask our city administrator to get your crystal ball out. And I know that this, either way, this goes to, I guess what I'd rather than thinking I know everything that you do, would you mind reviewing what happens next steps and both where it goes as far as the election, the ballot, and but if it fails, what goes on after that? If you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I'll first off, thank you for the compliment that I can read, predict the future. I certainly can't do that, but I can tell you what next steps would be. So assuming that a resolution is passed here tonight, the library board passes their resolution, the county passes their resolution. This ends up on the August ballot and it passes. We've already covered that, right? We go out, we sell bonds and we build a beautiful library. If it does not pass, then, I think the library is going to have to go back and regroup. The current facility that they're in, we did a lot of work on that facility in 2017, 2018. We went out and we did an assessment of that building and determined that to repair that building, not make interior cosmetic improvements, just to repair the roof, repair the walls, would be more than the cost of the building itself. So that is how we got here today. The library district has a lease agreement with the city that expires next year. So if this does not pass, I've been told, and Ms. Casarati can verify this, if I speak out of turn, that the library then would be in search of an alternate location to rent in the short term while they decide what the future is for a capital facility program years into the future. Obviously, you've probably seen in the news, Sumner Library is not the only one that is in need of a repair. There are other libraries within the district that are in similar or even worse conditions right now that they're working on. So this is the avenue to get you a new library. But if it doesn't happen, then the city will be in a position to either enforce the existing lease agreement or invest heavily in that building to repair the roof, the walls, and whatever else needed to make it habitable long-term.
Thank you for that. And would you mind adding a couple of comments about other options that might be available to the library board?
I'm going to actually ask Gretchen to come up and help with that, but I can tell you that while she's on her way up here, they could go out for a broader bond countywide, but that would take years of planning. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. I have been in my position for 9 months to create a district-wide bond plan or a master facility plan for the district for 19 branches, 655,000 residents is easily a 5+ year planning process. We are going to be doing planning processes for the whole district no matter what, because it needs to be done. The majority of our buildings were built by the bond in the late 80s. And as Jason expressed, are reaching end of life and making choices about investing in remodeling, updating, or moving on and finding alternative options. So from my position, looking at options in front of the board for Sumner, we would be looking to lease, as Jason expressed. The city, as we understand it, have intentions for that property, and the cost to repair the building is not really worth the value that the building itself is. So we don't have a lot of tools. We can seek private fundraising. Our capital campaign feasibility study settled on the amount that we are shooting for, which is $3 million. We feel that's achievable. Certainly, we want to stretch as far as we can on private fundraising, and anybody's got a couple of million sitting around, like I'd love to take them to coffee. So we do, as a public agency, we just don't have a lot of tools available to us. So we have a district-wide bond measure. We can draw these LCFAs, as we've learned a lot in the last few months on how this process works, and private fundraising, which includes grants and the state funding and things like that. So it's a very long answer. And part of that is just because I haven't been here long enough to chart that course yet. And that's going to be on our horizon for 2024, is really doing a more strategic district-wide approach to the facilities. And that would also be part of why we would want to lease, is to give some stability and consistency to the library services in this community.
Thank you for that explanation. Can I make sure I understand when you use the word district, is that a county?
Yes.
The county boundaries?
The Pierce County Library District is all the unincorporated areas outside of Tacoma. incorporated cities who have annexed into the district. So mostly the map is everywhere but Tacoma, from Rainier out to Gig Harbor and Key Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Mr. Reed?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one follow-up comment to what's on the screen now is I recognize it's a small amount. It's only $2 difference from the first option and $10 more or $10 more than what people were paying. But we also just increased taxes a significant amount at the city level. I don't want to say significant, but a similar amount. So they're already paying an extra 10, which would be an extra 10 on top of this. There are other the property tax variances. Some people's went up, some people's went down. I wasn't on the fortunate end of that. There were, and I don't know the specifics, but I have no doubt that there are going to be more asks coming in the short term. And the cumulative effect is what I'm concerned with, not the individual measures. And with an opportunity to even spread some of that out, not so much just on the taxpayer, protecting the Sumner citizens, but also it feels, for me, it feels more right to try and share that cost to the majority of people that are going to be using it. I know the lines are tough to establish. It's hard to draw those districts, but that in itself, even if it wasn't on, regardless of what the dollar amount is, I would still feel the same, that it should be fairly represented for who's going to be using the library, or at least as close to that as we can get. Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to this? You can come up and give your name and address, and you've got 3 minutes.
Mayor, council people. My question is, having worked in the schools, if we don't pass a levy in August, can we refloat it in October when there'd be a greater number of voters? Would that automatically happen? My question. Thank you.
If this did not pass in August, it could go immediately onto the November ballot, the way that the resolutions are written.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Cindy.
But there's costs involved with putting things on the ballot.
Correct, and the library district, per the resolution, would be paying those costs.
Yes. Okay, well, I'd like to do a point of order and call for a vote on this issue.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Actually, Mayor, you need to do a roll call vote on
Okay.
the amendment,
Okay. All right.
Reed amendment.
Okay, so we will do a roll call vote. Michelle. On the amendment. We're voting on the amendment. Patrick. Patrick.
Mayor, point of clarification, just for, this vote is specifically whether or not to adopt option 2 of the map.
Correct, this is a vote on Mr. Reed's amendment.
Yes.
If it passes, then you would vote again on the resolution as amended. So this is just to switch it to option 2 as we referred to it.
All right.
And I do apologize, Mayor. Point of order was by Deputy Hochstetter. Who was
Yes.
the second?
Councilmember. Newman.
Councilmember Newman, thank you. So I'll call roll for the amendment. Brown,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
No.
Newman,
No.
Potato,
No.
Cole,
No. Fails 3 to 4. So now do we vote on the original amendment?
Correct, it would now be time to vote on the original amendment, but council could also have further discussion if they desire.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, now we will call a roll call vote on the original amendment.
Original resolution, Mayor.
Resolution, whatever it is, we're calling it.
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Reed,
No.
Cole,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Passes 6-1. All right, we got through that. On to council reports. Councilmember Brown, do you have a report tonight?
I do not.
Thank you. Councilmember Potato.
Yeah, I just spent the last week working with the Sewing and Stitchery Expo that was held at the Puyallup Fairgrounds. And it's just good to know that people, a lot of the people stayed in our hotels. And so it's good to know that there's an economic, oh yeah, great economic impact. So thanks a lot, Jeff. Anyway, but they enjoyed being in our area. But there is a concern I have about one of the vendors drove his products up from California, and somebody took his truck and van from the hotel out at the Candlewood Suite. So, I mean, I know it's unless the hotels have a locked parking area, that seems to be something that happens too often. So just wish that wouldn't.
Councilmember Stewart.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Cole.
No report tonight.
Councilmember Newman.
Not while Jeff is operating the camera.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the commissioners. It's an important piece of our daily operation for the city, and I really appreciate stepping forward. I started off with the design commission myself, and that was very enlightening to how the city works. So I also wanted to reiterate my thanks to the cemetery, and since it was on the agenda tonight for the services, it's been just about a year.
Deputy City Administrator Jason Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Coming up at next week's study session, we have 2 items for discussion. First is the ordinance that would create a dig once policy, and that allows us to, when we have the road open for other utility projects or developers have it open for other utility projects, to put in conduit that's in line with our fiber master plan. And we'll also be providing council an update on where we're at with that fiber master plan, including next steps on how to increase the amount of fiber between our city facilities. And then we'll also hear from CFO Raymond about the 2022 financial report. This is a final report on 2022, as well as some information about how we fared over the 21-22 biennium. At the March 20th regular council meeting, we have a full night. First, we'll start off with a public hearing regarding 24th Street East partial right-of-way vacation. That's land that is in the White River Restoration Project area. You'll consider an agreement with Puget Sound Energy for the Stewart Road Bridge, a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement for changes to the police tactical response team, a consultant agreement supplement for Main Wood intersection improvements, consultant agreement supplement for the Town Center Utility Wooner project, a Cultural Arts Commission appointment of Nolan Bailey, 2 Cultural Arts Commission reappointments for Donna Hartke and Ben Haynes, a Parks and Forestry Commission reappointment for Ben Bridges, an ordinance declaring the real property south of 24th Street a surplus. That's also part of the White River Restoration Project. An ordinance approving franchise agreements with Fat Beam, an ordinance vacating a portion of 24th Street East right-of-way, and an ordinance amending the 23-24 budget for Q1. On the commission front, the Planning Commission's been busy. They're continuing to work through the Housing Action Plan priorities, and they recently completed their review of the proposed changes to small subdivisions and pipe stem lots. These, like I said, were priorities identified in the Housing Action Plan, and council will be reviewing those changes later in the month of March. Policy follow-up. Last year, council approved a master settlement agreement that set forth the groundwork for future opioid settlements with manufacturers, distributors, and resellers. The city is anticipated to receive approximately $200,000 over the next 20 years. The master agreement restricts how funds can be used and encourages regional partnerships. The mayor and staff are beginning discussions with regional partners, including neighboring cities, Pierce County, and the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department to identify the best use of these funds. And lastly, I want to just say that the city received a Well City Award. This is an award that is in status is issued through the Association of Washington Cities. We are one of 112 cities that received recognition this year. And what the Well City program does is it recognizes members that achieve quality standards in employee health promotion. Importantly, this designation entitles the city to a 2% premium savings on employee medical costs. That's about $35,000 a year. I want to thank the entire Wellness Committee for championing this effort, and a special thank you to Legal Coordinator Noel Clark for tracking all of our efforts and submitting the application. Happy to answer any questions.
I just have a quick one. It came up when you were talking about wellness for the tree planting this year. Will we be doing that as a community activity again this year, returning to that, or is that? We will. Okay. I was curious about that because we've had a lot of fun with that, my daughter and I. So thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you. I have one thing to say, and that's this Saturday, March 11th, our state representatives, Eric Robertson and Drew Stokesbury, will be holding a town hall meeting right here in this room at 2 p.m. So come on down and say hi. Meeting adjourned at 6:57.